Opening credits. The Wolf's Kitten. Paranormal Shifter Romance Short Story. By Selena Coffey. Auto-narrated using Google technology. Chapter 1. The asphalt blurred under Jack's heel, his knees sent him flying south along the road. The plan had worked and he had Lelani. He always wanted her so badly, and this was victory. It almost could have gone worse. The other people had seen him with his backside hanging out the cabin window, Lelani in his arms and about to start running. The werewolves didn't care about the vertical surfaces. Jack tried to stay in human form while he held Lelani. She was freezing. He took a header into the bushes. He shifted on his way down. He ran in a flat sprint for his cabin while his legs and heart pumped. Every branch etched against his vision. He knew Lelani's people would look for her, especially her sister Luna. Howling through the woods, he shifted to a wolf again and propelled to the other side using his paws. Paws were good for many things, but not carrying Lelani. He had to shift again, to human form. Lelani opened her eyes as Jack put her on the bed. She looked up and saw 3 men looking at her. She sat on the bed as she tried to cover her.
Censored.
She was terrified, and the alcohol was wearing off. She started remembering how Jack lured her into his trap. Lelani sat at the elegant marble bar, an undrunk glass of champagne bubbling in front of her. The reason the champagne was undrunk was apparent upon further inspection. On the rim of the glass, a tiny silver-winged figure sat. His feet were dipping into the champagne. The amber-colored wine swished around the glass as he moved his tiny feet back and forth. Lelani pinned the tiny fairy with her angriest glare. "My last date was a disaster, Clint. What made you think that an unwashed werewolf would be a fitting lover for the lioness of history?" Clint gave the lioness an abashed glance. Now, Lelani, wasn't that bad. I mean, granted, he smelled a bit woodsy. Woodsy. Lelani sputtered. He smelled like he hadn't bathed in months. Perhaps I could have overlooked the fragrance. Lelani made a moue of disgust. Certainly, he was handsome enough. If it hadn't been for... The tiny fairy held up his hand. I know. I should have checked out his educational background a bit better. That's completely my fault. She knew that was sarcastic. He thought I was Cleo, Clint. Not Lelani the lioness, but Cleopatra Philopator, last pharaoh of Egypt. Cleopatra, who not only was immortal, but has been dead for almost 2,000 years. The lioness put a hand up to her aching head. I realize we lionesses aren't as well known in this millennium as we once were. I understand, truly I do. However, don't you think, Clint, if you were trying to find me a mate, you might have at least stopped to check and make sure your candidate knew who I was first? When he realized I wasn't the Egyptian seductress, he got all pouty and barely spoke to me the rest of the night. Clint blushed. Yes, I probably should have thought that through better. At least he was better than the first guy. The fairy said brightly, trying to put a positive spin on the terrible date. Lelani gave Clint an exasperated sigh. Oh yes. I will give you that. At least the werewolf didn't try to enslave me. Why did you try to set me up with the sloth? The tiny fairy flushed, his whole body taking on a pink hue. Hugh is an old friend of mine. When he heard I was trying to find you a mate, well, he volunteered. I thought you two would hit it off. I sort of forgot. What did you forget, Clint? That sloth enslave women with poison sweat glands? Of course Hugh volunteered. If I wasn't immune to those sorts of enchantments, Hugh would have been the only sloth with a pet lioness. Yuck, by the way. That was revolting. I've never been gladder to be invulnerable to mortal female ailments. Why are you friends with the sloth anyhow? It's a long story involving my ex-mate. Clint muttered under his breath. He plunged on louder. I know the last 2 guys weren't exactly your cup of tea, Lelani. I already apologized about Hugh. Just hang in there with me. I promise tonight's guy is going to be perfect. Lelani shook her head and gently poked the fairy. He had better be. I realize you are trying for a promotion, Clint, but I only promised you 3 chances. If this guy is another stinker, we are done. Now will you please get your feet out of my drink? Fairy foot doesn't exactly add to the taste. Clint obliged her. When she tried a sip, Lelani wrinkled her nose in disgust. You owe me a new glass of champagne. Waiter. While the waiter brought the lioness a new drink, Lelani looked around the elegant immortals-only restaurant where she was meeting her 3rd blind date. A mixed crowd of fae, vampires and other beings of mortal legend sat at linen-draped tables, eating and enjoying each other's company. A dark skulking movement in the corner of her eye caused the muse to turn. However, Lelani could see nothing that matched the dark shadow she thought she had glimpsed. Clint, did you see something odd just now? The lioness asked, turning back to her tiny companion. Huh? No, I didn't notice anything beyond all the normal strangeness. He indicated the entire restaurant. Don't worry, our guy should be here any minute now, Clint said in an attempt to placate her. Lelani continued to look around the restaurant, trying to figure out what had drawn her eye. That was when she saw him. A striking man was being escorted to a lone table by the host, a bouquet of narcissus in his hand. He was dressed in an impeccably cut Italian suit. His slightly long, dark brown hair was bound back with leather thong. Put him in armor, and he would easily have been at home on a Greek battlefield. Lelani gave a little sigh of longing. She hadn't thought they made men like that anymore. He certainly wasn't anyone she recognized from the old world. The host tapped Lelani on the shoulder, interrupting her thoughts. Lady Lioness, your table is ready, right this way. With Clint perched on her shoulder, Lelani followed the host into the main restaurant. When they stopped at the table with the narcissus-bearing man, Lelani could not have been more shocked. The host pulled Lelani's chair out while the handsome man stood up. Glenn will be your server this evening. I hope you enjoy your meal. The host gave the table a little half bow and walked back towards her podium at the front of the restaurant. Ahem. Clint cleared his throat and, settling on the edge of the table, introduced the couple. Jack Korean, may I have the pleasure of introducing Lelani, the lioness of history. Lelani, this is Jack, firstborn of the Claw. Jack took her hand and
censored
it. See, I told you he's perfect, Clint told her in a stage whisper. Lelani greeted the werewolf, accepting the bouquet of narcissus, which she realized had been wrapped in parchment. That's very thoughtful, Jack, thank you. Will you please excuse me for just a moment? I have to use the ladies' room. Picking up the fairy by his collar, Lelani marched to the ladies' restroom. Plunking her erstwhile matchmaker on the counter, she began to touch up her makeup. That is a werewolf, Clint. Well, yes, of course he's a werewolf. Didn't I just say that when I introduced you? The fairy answered, obviously confused. Yes, you did. Did you bother to run a background check on this guy? Lelani asked. Well, of course I did. The little fairy said, perturbed. He is from a very old noble family of werewolves living in Eastern Europe. He hasn't managed to find his bride yet, and he was taking some heat from his old man. So he moved out here. Listen here, mister. The first guy you set me up with tried to enchant me. The second man insulted me. If this werewolf tries to eat me, or glamour me, or do anything else vaguely evil, I am coming after you. I will lock you up in the largest book of Fey history I can find, and not let you out for 500 years. Don't think for a second that I won't do it. I'm not the proclaimer for nothing. Lelani snapped her handbag shut and spun on her heel. From behind her she heard Clint's voice. Dang it, this had better work. Heading back to the table, she plastered a pleasant smile on her face and prepared for the worst. Her memories were interrupted by Jack as he snapped his fingers. I want you to eat something. Jack said. I'm not eating anything. All I need to know is why you have kidnapped me, she said. Jack liked Lelani the first time he saw her hunting. No one saw him watch her. He had been looking for a way to meet her, but it was impossible. She was highly protected by her sister Luna. His plan for making his pack more powerful than Seth's was about to come true once he could mate with Lelani. He risked his life to take her from the cabin, and was ready to explain to his father why he did it. He always wanted to be strong and lead his people after his father. "I only wanted to protect you," he answered. He wanted her to love him, not to see him as a mate. He was the perfect man for her. He looked at her with pain in his heart. He never wanted to profess his love to her in this kind of situation. From what? She was curious. Gideon pulled Jack to the side. He was nervous of the war that was coming. Lelani trembled with fear. She now realized why her sister warned her not to go out by herself. Tears fell down her cheeks. "Are you sure you want to lock her here?" Gideon asked. "I want her to be mine. Don't tell my father anything, let me be the one to talk to him," he said. "You should have kidnapped her sister, not her. She's a helpless lioness who will only bring you trouble." "I only want her, I have my reasons why." "Okay." He went back to check on Lelani. She looked vulnerable. "Please let me go back and I swear I won't tell anyone about this," she pleaded. Jack wanted to let her go, but he couldn't let the steel fangs rule. "I promise I will never hurt you." He tried to hold her hand but she moved. She was not ready to be here, and would do anything to escape. She realized Jack had feelings for her. He was the only way for her to escape. If she could use the Sachet powers on him, then he would become her slave. "I'm doing okay," she pretended. She wanted to act normal and gain his and everyone's trust. "I will protect you with my life if you let me." He touched her hand and this time she didn't resist. She felt at ease and he knew she trusted him. "What do you want from me?" she asked. "I only want you to stay here and feel at home. You will get anything you want. I will assign someone to help you and stay with you. My sister will be the one taking care of you. I'm not your enemy, I want to be your friend." He
censored
her hand. She pretended to smile at him. "It's okay, I will behave if you don't do anything stupid," she warned him. She had a plan and had to execute it soon. Chapter 2. Luna Winter stalked through the dark night forest. Her soft padded feet made no noise as she moved through the undergrowth. Her pitch-black fur made her invisible in the darkness. Nothing with eyes to see or ears to hear would know she was moving through the mountainous woods tonight. She was well within Steel Fang territory now. She couldn't afford to be stopped until she had made it to the pack's alpha, Rodney Mackenzie. Upwind, a Steel Fang pack member stood sentry up high on a cliff. She must be getting close to Mackenzie's cabin now. The light breeze which had been blowing from the west shifted slightly, blowing now from the northwest. Luna swore silently. Soon, her lion scent would be carried to the sentry on the cliff, as well as any of his pack mates who might be stationed throughout the woodland. Luna picked up speed, loping through the woods. A lone howl echoed through the forest, quickly joined by others. The pack had caught her scent. This close to the Alpha's home, they would be on her in no time. A distant light peeked at her through the trees. There, that must be the cabin. The howling grew louder, and Luna could hear the pounding of canine feet close behind her. Sparing no reserves, Luna ran for the cabin, as if it were hellhounds chasing her rather than a pack of werewolves. Her heart pounded as the pack began to catch up. Lions were meant for powerful, swift sprints which ended quickly. She was not built for a marathon run. Still, she could not allow herself to be caught. Lelani was counting on her. The light from the cabin became brighter. Luna could see the clearing of the yard just ahead of her. A pair of snapping jaws lunged at her from behind. Luna could feel the wolf's warm breath on her heels as she barely sidestepped the attack. There in front of her, a small semicircle of wolves stood in the cabin's yard. In the middle and slightly behind them, a massive white wolf stood calmly staring at her. There he was. Luna knew without a doubt that had to be Mackenzie. The air was full of growling and snarling as Luna raced into the clearing. It was clear the Steel Fangs did not appreciate her presence. Too bad for them, she thought to herself. Luna had no time for any of them but the Alpha. The semicircle of wolves began to move forward when they realized Luna was not about to slow down. If she couldn't get to Mackenzie in time, she was good as dead. Using her forward momentum, Luna leapt towards the huge white wolf, clearing his pack members with ease. She landed on the ground in front of him with a thump and released her transformation. Now she lay before him,
censored,
and completely vulnerable. Out of the corner of her eye she could see a massive gray wolf, only slightly smaller than Mackenzie himself, on a collision course with her. Luna screamed out "Sanctuary Alpha," just as the enormous beast hit her. The wolf pinned her with his bulk. Although she had been expecting to be attacked, Luna felt no teeth sink into her exposed flesh. She could feel the wolf's body shake with a deep, throaty growl. "That's enough, Samson." A powerful, authoritative voice washed over the clearing. "You know full well, I honor a request for asylum. Let the lady up. I believe she is already fully aware of your displeasure." With a final growl, Samson moved off of her, exposing her
censored
body to the chilly night air. Luna shivered as she stared at the alpha's bare feet. She could feel his eyes on her body. Luna didn't dare look up at his face. She didn't want any of the pack to think she was making a show of dominance. She watched as Mackenzie slid a pair of jeans on over his bare feet. "Come inside, she-cat. You can explain to me why you came all this way, into the heart of my territory without my permission." Luna took the hand the alpha extended and allowed him to pull her to her feet. For the first time, Luna looked into the face of the man she had pinned all her hopes upon. The rumors she'd heard of his good looks had not been exaggerations. Rodney Mackenzie was the epitome of everything a powerful male ought to be, well-muscled, with chiseled features and deep expressive eyes. Authority rolled off of him in waves. Refusing to be intimidated by him, Luna rolled back her shoulders and tilted her head up. Mackenzie quirked a half-smile at her show of spirit, and turning, walked into the cabin. She followed the alpha into the house, walking as regally as an ancient queen. Once they were inside, the alpha threw Luna an old t-shirt which she snatched out of the air. Not surprisingly, the shirt smelled of him. How like an alpha, Luna thought to herself, to make a claim on a newcomer with his scent. She smoothly pulled on the t-shirt, which fell to her mid-thigh. She ran a hand through her ebony hair, trying to bring it back to some semblance of order. Nudity never bothered her, but messiness certainly did. Mackenzie watched her ministrations with a look of bland amusement, as he sat down on a leather armchair. "Would you like a brush, she-cat?" he asked, chuckling. "No, I'm fine, Alpha," she said, and dropping her hand from her hair, sniffed daintily. A few members of the pack had filed into the cabin after them. They were probably the most senior-ranking, Luna thought, judging by their postures. While there were 2 women in the small group, Luna noted with relief that neither of them took a position next to Mackenzie. That meant the pack still had no alpha female. Her information had been correct. Luna waited patiently, until all the pack members had settled around the room, arranging themselves informally around their leader. "My name is Luna Winter. I am a daughter of the line of Nubia." The alpha's eyebrow rose in surprise, and from somewhere in the room one of his subordinates gave an appreciative whistle. Luna had known that would get their attention. The line of Nubia was one of the eldest, rarest, and most coveted bloodlines in existence. They had been named after an Egyptian goddess of knowledge, whom they were all descended from through a matriarchal line. To the best of her knowledge, Luna and her sister Lelani were the last 2 remaining Nubia females in North America capable of bearing young. Ultimately, that was the cause of their problem. "I have come to you ask for your help, Alpha. My sister has been taken against her will. I need your aid and that of your pack to rescue her. In exchange for your assistance." Luna took a breath to steady her nerves and started again. "In exchange for your assistance, I will submit myself to you and bear your young." For a moment the room was utterly silent from shock, and then every pack member was speaking at once. Luna let the noise wash over her. She was only interested in Rodney Mackenzie's reaction. He remained silent, watching her speculatively in his turn. Finally, the other werewolves simmered down. "This is crazy, Rodney." The man who sat nearest Mackenzie snorted indignantly. How do we know this feline is telling us the truth? Can she prove any of what she says? Samson has a point, she cat. The alpha said to her coolly. Can you prove to us you are who you claim to be? Luna nodded brusquely. She had expected her claims to be met with some disbelief. She walked over to Samson and grasped his meaty wrist in one elegant hand. Closing her eyes, Luna allowed her ancestral power to take over. Her mind was filled with knowledge of the man whose wrist she held. She filtered through all of the information for some memory she could use, something a stranger would never know. When you were 8, you were on a Little League baseball team, you played in the outfield. Late in the 9th inning, you made a running catch for a fly ball. You tripped over a gopher hole and broke your right ankle. However, you still managed to catch the ball and won the game for your team. You refused to let your father take you to the hospital until you had gotten celebratory ice cream with your team. You had chocolate with strawberry sauce. Samson swore quietly. I regret my hasty words, lady. Rodney, I withdraw my objections. Luna let go of Samson's wrist and opened her eyes. The room was spinning around her. Using her power in this manner was always draining. Having to use it on a was even worse. She took a hesitant step towards Mackenzie, but her shaky legs couldn't carry her. In an instant, Luna found herself wrapped in the alpha's powerful arms. The rest of you may leave. Luna and I have much to discuss. The statement was clearly not a suggestion. The rest of the werewolves quickly filed out of the cabin, and soon the two were alone. Mackenzie carefully placed Luna on his couch, and then drew a warm blanket over her. Then he knelt in front of her so that their heads were even. Why are you here, Luna? The werewolf asked her quietly. I realize you need help, but why come to me specifically? You don't even know me. Closing her eyes so she wouldn't have to watch his head spin around her, Luna answered. You are the alpha of a powerful pack. You have the resources I need to help my sister. My contacts tell me you are an honorable man. Once you give your word, you don't go back on a promise. She paused for a moment and then continued. Plus you are unmated. You have no young, though pack dynamics will soon require you to have them. I need a sire for my children. I will not allow my lineage to die off. She opened her eyes and stared into his eyes. I cannot allow my line to die off. Please, Alpha Mackenzie, help me. Chapter 3. Call me Rodney. He told her. Closing her eyes again, Luna sighed and nodded her head. Does that mean you are going to help me, Rodney? She asked him quietly. Instead of answering her, he asked her another question. Who has your sister? Luna told him. Jack Korean took her last night from our house in town. The son of James Korean, leader of the Crimson Claw, he asked quietly. Luna nodded in confirmation, and then sitting up explained what had happened. Lelani met him at a local bar. Rumors had been floating around about who we were. Jack got Lelani drunk, and she accidentally showed him what she was. Our power is harder to control when we aren't sober. A woman of Nubia was too large of a temptation for him. He knew he couldn't take me, so he waited until I was out hunting. Then he and a few of his cronies took Lelani. He left me a note telling me that he had taken her as his bride, and warned me if I tried anything, his father would come for me. She shook her head. No wonder you came to me. Rodney snorted. James owes me big, and Jack should know better than to try to kidnap a bride this close to my territory. It should take him most of a day to get her back to the Claw's land. More if she fights him, and he won't claim her until his father sanctions the match. The werewolf sighed. You are right though, a mate with that sort of power is hard to turn down or give up. He won't let her go, unless I can lay down a lot of pressure. Pressure you can't exert on our behalf, unless Lelani is considered under pack law to be family. Luna confirmed. If you take me as your mate, then Lelani is your sister-in-law. She falls under your protection. James Korean won't risk war between the two packs for one woman, especially when she is being held against her will. Luna continued. I realize that a lion may not seem like an ideal mate for an alpha werewolf. If you just give me a chance. Rodney cut her off. You've made your point, Luna. You're right. The best way to save your sister is to extend Steel Fang's protection to her as my sister-in-law. You're also correct that I need to take a mate. Samson and the others have been bothering me about it for months now. I'm not sure a lioness is what they had in mind, but as I said, a woman of Nubia is hard to turn down. If this is what you want, then I swear I will do as you ask. I will take you as my mate, and then make sure your sister is returned safely. Come with me. He held out his hand to her, and Luna took it. Silently, Rodney led her out of the living room and down the short hall to his bedroom. Luna's heart was pounding wildly in her.
Censored.
He didn't stop until they were standing in front of his bed. Are you sure this is what you want? He asked her. Luna nodded her head, and to make sure he understood, brushed her lips against his. She heard Rodney rumble deep in his throat, as her innate magic brushed over him. Pressing her tightly against him, Rodney deepened the
Censored.
Luna relaxed, letting her power flow through her. Rather than trying to forcibly pick out information, she let the Nubia tell her what to do to please him. This was what the power was intended for, what made a woman of her lineage so valued as a mate. She would become his perfect lover, molding her actions and reactions to his needs. In turn, she received his passion back through her magical link to him. He tried to walk away, but she held him back by the arm. There,
Censored.
Met, and he felt like dying. This was empowering to him. She looked him directly in the eyes, all the shyness was gone. She wondered why she never felt like this with anyone before. She was always shy around men, and now she understood why she was still single for a long time. She was not letting him go, this was the chance she was waiting for. She moved closer to him seductively. He was trembling as she moved closer to him. He held her by the waist, and
Censored.
Her lightly on the lips. She tried to hide her fears so he could not see it. He smiled as he looked at her. She leaned on the chair as he removed her clothes. I want to give you something you are not used to first, and then give you what you are used to later. Bring it on, Luna said with confidence. Now that you've made it this far, why don't you enjoy yourself? Luna said as she touched the tip of his
Censored.
There were rooms partitioned inside. She didn't want to see what his house looked like.
This scene has been censored to provide a safe and enjoyable reading experience for everyone.
Chapter 4. Lelani stared at the angry werewolf from her safe perch high in a pine tree. For the last half hour, Gideon had been sitting in the snow at the base of the pine. He was growling and yipping at her to come down from her perch and return home with him. Lelani daintily licked a paw. She pretended to be unconcerned by all the noise her bodyguard was making. Annoying Gideon was Lelani's latest joy in life. After all, she hadn't asked to be part of a werewolf pack or to be given a bodyguard. A few weeks ago, Lelani had been abducted from her home by Jack Korean, a werewolf who had been intent on forcing her to become his mate. She knew her sister was coming for her. Jack Korean made sure that she was treated nicely and even assigned a bodyguard for her. Lelani, however, chafed under the werewolf lifestyle. An unmated Nubian lion was not meant to live in a pack. Damn it, Lelani. Get your furry rear out of that tree, or I am coming up there after you. Again. Apparently, Gideon had gotten tired of waiting for her to come down on her own. He stood shivering in the snow, nude as the day he was born. Lelani took a good long look. She had to admit, Gideon Rude was a fine-looking man. She always considered it a good day when she could force the handsome werewolf to change back out of his werewolf form and face her down.
Censored.
Deciding she had played hard to get long enough, Lelani stood up, stretched, and jumped down from the tree. She didn't want to have a repeat of her last hunt. Lelani had been forced to pluck pine slivers from Gideon's legs, while Jack lectured her about not maltreating her bodyguard. Landing next to the well-muscled man, Lelani gave him a playful head.
Censored.
Knock it off, she cat. I'm hungry, cold, and it's time to head home. The striking man turned back into a werewolf, huge and grizzled gray with light yellow-green eyes. Lelani gave his muzzle a quick lick, and then leapt away as he snapped at her. Lelani turned and began making her way back towards the cabin the pack had given her to call home. She wondered how Gideon felt about having to share living accommodations with a woman he wasn't sleeping with. Despite all the teasing and trouble she gave him, Lelani felt sorry for the handsome werewolf. It couldn't be easy on him. She had seen him stealing glances at other werewolves when they went out together, or finished their night curled up next to each other in the midst of the pack. Clearly he wanted to take a mate himself. Yet most of the female wolves in the pack were already mated, or too intimidated by the alpha's second to consider approaching him. Not to mention he was now stuck following her around. Maybe there was something she could do to help him. When they finally reached the cabin, Lelani shifted back into her human form, swinging her hips tantalizingly as she walked in the front door. She grabbed her clothes, which hung on the wall just inside, then threw Gideon his sweatpants over her shoulder. She could hear him give a frustrated sigh as she headed to the kitchen. "Ah, come on, Gideon. It wasn't that bad, you only had to wait half an hour this time." She looked over her shoulder at the man, who stared at her with an eyebrow arched. "Come on, I will make those steaks you brought back from last night's kill." "I'm going to take a shower." He grunted at her. "I'll be back out when the food is ready. Don't forget to let you know if I hear or smell anything suspicious." Lelani finished the sentence for him. I know. Get going, will you?" Lelani fried the venison steaks with some potatoes and onions while she pondered Gideon's problem. The trouble was, he needed to get out of pack territory and meet a few women who weren't intimidated by his status in the pack. Lelani knew a few nice female wares who lived in the nearby town. However, after the incident 5 months ago, she had been forbidden from returning to town by Mackenzie. The town was outside of pack territory, and it was considered too dangerous for her to go down there without several wolves in attendance. If she tried to go down there with just Gideon, she would get both of them in a lot of trouble. More trouble than it was worth. Lelani sighed as she turned the steaks in their pan. Her life would be so much easier if she just... Lelani stopped and blinked a few times as a realization hit her. If she were to take a mate, all her problems would be solved. She wouldn't need a guard anymore. Jack would have no use for a mated Nubian. Plus her magic would help her adjust to her lover's lifestyle. Who would the lucky werewolf be? She mulled over her options as she pulled the steaks from the frying pan. Then she heard Gideon come out of the bathroom and call down the hall to ask if the food was done. A devilish smile spread across Lelani's pretty face. Perfect, she could get rid of both of their problems in one fell swoop. "Dinner's ready," she called down the hall in her best 50s housewife voice. While the two ate, Lelani carefully considered how she could seduce the big werewolf. Lelani knew it wouldn't be easy. After 5 months of chasing her around, Gideon was savvy to most of her usual tricks. If she simply tried to slip into bed with him one night, he'd throw a fit. Not to mention that her lack of experience made outright seduction a bad option. Getting him drunk wouldn't work either. First off, Gideon could drink her under the table easily. Plus her Nubian magic worked far more easily when both partners were willing. Seducing a man in a drunken stupor wasn't the best way to start a relationship. "Why are you staring at me like that?" Gideon's annoyed voice broke into her musings. Startled, Lelani gave him her most disarming smile. "No reason. Is the new episode of that fishing show you like on TV tonight?" Gideon grunted and confirmed that it was, although he wasn't sure how the reception would be. "Weather report says there is a big snowstorm coming in tonight, maybe tomorrow." She sighed appreciatively. "You may be a pain in my ass, she-cat, but you sure can cook." That was a fine steak. Clearing his plate, Gideon headed to the front door. "I'm gonna check in with Jack. You stay put, I will be back." While Gideon was gone, a plan began to form in Lelani's head. A few miles down the ridge line from her cabin was a small cave. She had found it on a hunt a few months after she moved in. Sometimes she used it as refuge when she wanted to spend some time away from the pack. She had made a little den inside, and kept it stocked with some blankets, a few books, a lantern, and a few other necessities. Everything she would need to spend a few days away, in relative privacy and comfort. Gideon knew exactly where it was. He had tracked her to the cave several times. If she could lure him out there, right as the storm hit, they would be marooned together in a small space. That should give Lelani ample time to convince him that their relationship needed to take on a new dimension. When Gideon returned, he was surprised to find Lelani already dozing on the couch. Carefully, he picked up his charge and carried her to her bedroom. He groaned a bit when she reacted to his presence by cuddling into his arms. Lelani hid her half-smile as she snuggled against him. Just as she'd thought, he wasn't as immune to her charms as he pretended. She felt him gently place her on the bed, and then carefully tuck the blankets around her. She heard him sigh as he left her bedroom, and Lelani smiled beneath the blankets. He was already halfway hers. Lelani did allow herself several hours of sleep before she woke up. It was the dead of night, and the cabin was nearly silent around her. All she could hear was the sound of Gideon's breathing coming from his bedroom. Looking out the window, Lelani saw to her satisfaction that the snow was falling heavily outside. There was little wind, so visibility was still good. The weather seemed perfect for her plan. Lelani stepped away from the window, butterflies beginning to flutter in her stomach. What if she was mistaken about the attraction she thought she had seen? What if she couldn't get Gideon to make love to her? What if something bad happened while they were out there, by themselves? Lelani shook off her apprehension. Now was not the time for doubt. Now was the time for action. Slipping out of the cabin and into the snow, Lelani snuck around the cabin until she reached her bodyguard's window. She rapped loudly on the glass pane until she saw him start out of bed and face her. His furious expression told her she had his attention. She gave her guard a chipper little wave. "Hi, Gideon. Isn't the snow gorgeous? I'm going to go out for a run. Bye." Like that, she shifted into a lioness and ran off into the night. Lelani didn't actually go very far. She stopped when she was hidden from sight in the nearby woods and listened closely. She could hear Gideon bellowing furiously at her, first from the window, and within a few moments from the door. With a final "damn it you crazy she-cat," he shifted form, and she could hear canine footsteps head in the direction she had fled. Then she was off in full force, headed for the cave. She loved having Gideon chase her. It always gave her a thrill to know he was just behind her, that he might catch her at any moment. A few times she had even let him catch her, his massive bulk slamming into her and pinning her into the ground. Tonight was no exception. Lelani ran through the woods. Behind her she could hear Gideon beginning to catch up. He chased her through the snow, the white fluff outlining her black body, making her easier to tail. Ahead, Lelani saw the ridge that her cave hideout was built into. She made a slight turn towards the cave, allowing her to make certain Gideon was still close behind her. When the werewolf realized her destination, he began to speed up, towards her flank. He was intent on cutting her off. That was a tactic of his, Lelani knew well. Instead of letting him flank her, Lelani stopped short. Gideon blew past her before he realized his mistake. By the time he had turned around, Lelani was off again, this time sprinting towards the cave. By the time he caught up, Lelani was already inside the cave, stretched out,
Censored.
on her pile of blankets. "Oh, there you are, Gideon. I was wondering what took you so long," Lelani told the werewolf as he shifted in front of her. "What the hell, Lelani? Have you lost your furry feline mind? What part of snowstorm were you confused about?" Right on cue, the wind began to howl outside the cave, blowing the snow into a nearly solid white sheet. Gideon glanced over his shoulder at the weather outside. Then he angrily threw the heavy wool blanket she had pegged up to act as a door down over the cave entrance. When he moved towards her, Lelani realized he was favoring his left leg. Alarmed, she sat up. "What happened to your leg?" Lelani asked him. "It's fine," he grumbled at her angrily. "I just strained my ankle a bit on that last turn." "You really need to stop doing this, she-cat. It's too hard on my body. Gideon sat down next to her, looking defeated. What are you running from, Lelani? Is it me? Do you want me to ask Jack to assign you a new guard? What? Lelani gasped, horrified. No, of course I don't want a new guard. I'm not running from anything. I want? Gideon looked at her and sighed. What are you after, Lelani? Can't you just tell me? I realize these last few months have been hard on you. I know you didn't ask to become a pack member. All of us are trying our best to help you fit in. If there is something you need, just say so. I'm not a mind reader. Lelani stared at Gideon. She hadn't realized that her behavior had been so hard on him. I'm sorry, Gideon. I didn't mean to cause you so much trouble. She touched his cold cheek with a gentle hand. I thought you enjoyed chasing me. I enjoy it. She could feel his cheek heat as he flushed. Well, I can't say the chases don't have their moments, Gideon admitted. Lelani leaned in close to him. Do you want me to ask Rodney to assign me a new guard? Lelani asked him quietly. Gideon shook his head. No, I don't, he said as their eyes met. Good. Lelani answered quietly and brushed her lips tenderly against his. For a moment, Gideon froze under the soft.
Censored.
Then, as if a mighty storm had been brewing inside him and had finally broken, he struck. In a moment, Lelani found herself encased in his arms, lying under him, as his lips claimed hers in a passionate assault. The Nubian magic flowed through her, letting her meet his passion with a wild abandon of her own. While the storm raged outside, the couple's wild passions raged inside.
This scene has been censored to provide a safe and enjoyable reading experience for everyone.
Chapter 5. The next morning, Luna awoke to find Rodney gently shaking her shoulder. I have already spoken to James. Jack managed to finally bring Lelani to the Claw's headquarters late last night. Seems she gave him quite a run for his money. He has agreed to return her to us if we meet him in person and can prove her status. We will meet James and Jack in neutral territory in 3 hours. I had Angel bring you something to wear. You should get dressed. I will find you something to eat on the way out there. Rodney gave her,
Censored,
and after a long moment had to force himself away, lest they be delayed by a repeat of last night's lovemaking. Luna smiled at the look of longing on his face as he walked out the door. She lay back in bed for a moment, her hand resting lightly on her womb. Then Luna sat up and turned to find the proffered clothes sitting on the edge of the bed, a hairbrush sitting neatly on top of them. Luna chuckled as she dressed. She pulled the brush through her hair, then walked out into the living room of the cabin. Rodney was already waiting for her by the door. Rodney held the door of the cabin open for her, and Luna walked outside to find the entire Steel Fang pack waiting for them outside. Samson approached her, and ritualistically stepping into her space, put his hand around her waist. Rodney's answering growl was instant and terrifying. Samson quickly backed up, obviously a bit shocked by the vehemence of what was typically a ritual response. One of the two women Luna had seen the night before, a petite blonde, tried to move past Luna to approach Rodney. Luna blocked her path and screamed an outraged snarl at the interloper. The blonde jumped in the air and quickly moved away, back towards the comfort of the pack. Luna was surprised at her actions. She had not anticipated that she would want to protect her mate. He was, after all, practically a complete stranger. Suddenly, she found she didn't want another female within 20 feet of her man. The alpha pair bond having been tested and accepted by the pack, they all knelt before the couple. Rodney gave her a comforting squeeze. You will get used to it. Come on, we need to go. 3 hours later, she and Rodney were standing next to each other in a forested clearing, the pack arrayed behind them. From the other side of the woods, James Korean and his son Jack came walking out. Luna noted with satisfaction that Jack looked worse for the wear. Lelani followed the two, escorted by an elderly female member of the pack. It was fairly clear by the look on her face that the elder did not approve of Jack's tactics for acquiring a mate. Luna caught Lelani's eye from across the clearing. She looked tired and angry, but uninjured. When Lelani tried to walk towards her sister, James stopped her. "Not yet, little cat." Luna could hear him tell her. Rodney called out across the clearing. "James, you are holding a member of my pack against her will. I am asking that you release her peacefully." The Crimson Claw's alpha shook his head no. "My boy."
Censored.
To claim this nubia as his wife. "Last I heard, Rodney, you had no alpha female in your pack. Yet now you show up with a strange woman at your side, and claim pack status for a female you didn't even know existed until yesterday? I'm not buying it." Luna snuck a worried glance at Rodney as she slipped her hand into his. He seemed unconcerned, alert but relaxed. She took a deep breath to calm her nerves and called out across the clearing. "My name is Luna. Lelani is my sister. Last night, Rodney Mackenzie took me as his mate, and the Steel Fang Pack has accepted our pair bond. Even now his child is forming in my womb." Her announcement drew startled breaths from behind her, and Rodney's eyes flicked over to her before returning to watch James. His grip on her hand tightened. "Luna, are you sure? It's barely been 12 hours. He muttered to her under his breath. She simply shook her head and called out to the Crimson Claw's alpha again. "Surely your elder can discern these things. Send her to me." Luna released Rodney's hand and calmly walked into the center of the clearing. James nodded his head, and the elderly woman walked out to meet Luna. The elder took Luna's hand in her cool, leathered one. Luna could feel a tiny burst of magic pulse through her, and then the woman chuckled. "You're a clever girl," the old woman said to Luna under her breath. "Rodney will have his hands full with you, and that's before the twins. They're a boy and girl, by the way. Good for you. Don't you worry for your sister. Jack's an idiot sometimes, but he didn't hurt her." Turning back, the old woman called back to James. "Rodney's claim is valid, son. This woman is his mate and bears his young. No, I will not allow them to take her from me," Jack said. For once in his life, he was going to ignore his father's orders. "You will have to listen to your father," Lelani said. "I mated with Gideon. I cannot be your mate now. He will leave with me." Jack looked at Gideon with rage in his eyes. He was like a brother to him. He trusted him. It was clear to Gideon that he cannot stay with the pack now that he betrayed them. Too bad for them, he thought to himself. He had no time for them but Lelani. James nodded his head, and just like that, Lelani was running across the clearing to her sister, followed closely by Gideon. With a sigh of relief, Lelani held her younger sister tightly to her. From behind Luna, Rodney approached them, putting a gentle hand on Luna's shoulder. "Welcome to the Steel Fang Pack, little sister." Sniffling, Lelani lifted her head to look up at the alpha. "Thank you. For rescuing me, I mean, and making me an auntie? Luna, I knew you'd been looking for a mate before your next cycle, but why didn't you tell me?" Lelani fixed her sister with an incredulous smile. Luna blushed. "It's a long story. Come on, I will tell you on the way home." The two women turned and walked back to the edge of the clearing, where their new family waited to welcome them. Lelani looked at Gideon, giving him the sweetest smile. She was so pleased that her plan had worked out. "Thank you for reading my book. If you like this story, I think you'll enjoy my book, Early Wolf. A big favor to ask. I would really love it if you could take a few seconds to leave me a review. Thank you so much in advance." About the author. Selena Coffey is a romance writer who lives happily in London with her husband and son. She is a hopeless romantic who grew up always believing in love, and she is not ashamed to admit this. It is this belief that makes her so passionate about writing crazy love stories. A stereotypical girly girl, she loves shopping. So whenever she gets a chance and the spare cash, you will probably find her browsing online for the next pair of shoes to add to her collection. You can find her online at www.selenacoffee.com. Contact her at hello@selenacoffee.com. Closing credits. This has been The Wolf's Kitten. Written by Selena Coffey. Auto-narrated using Google technology. Copyright 2024 by Lovie Books Limited. Production copyright 2024 by Lovie Books Limited.